Good morning, dear students. Welcome back to our online class. So, today we'll be continuing with the short story A Gorilla in the Guest Room, written by Gerald Durrell. So, in the previous video, we have seen that how finally Pongo became the member of the Durrell's family, and Gerald Durrell started his journey from Jersey, collecting Pongo in his hand, and now he comes and reaches to his own place. So we'll continue today from page number 78 onwards, paragraph first. When we landed at the airport, I took Pongo out of his crate and we drove to the zoo with him sitting on my lap, taking a great interest in the cows we passed and occasionally turning round so that he could peer up into my face. When we arrived, I carried him up to our flat, for his cage was not quite ready, and I had decided that he would have to spend a couple of days in our guest room. So, finally Pongo reached to the Gerald Durrell Zoo, and when he brought them, he was trying to, get closer to the animal Pongo, because for Pongo, Durrell is also a stranger, and for Durrell also, Pongo is a new creature where he has to pay more and more attention on it. So his crate, that his cage, was actually not ready by this time. So Durrell decided that he will be taking him into the guest room. Okay, his grave caught his manner, and his rather sad expression immediately won over both Jackie and my mother. But unlike the other animals, Pongo seemed to be very much trained and civilized. Okay, so when he was brought into the guest room, he did not scatter the things like earlier the chimpanzees used to do, or any other monkeys of this family used to do that. Pongo seemed to be very quiet, and the way he behaved, he actually took the hearts of Jackie and Jurel's mother. And before long, he was lolling back on the sofa while they piled up with some delicacy. So when Pongo came, they gave something to eat. And before that, Pongo was lolling up, means what, rolling on the sofa there. Okay, and the staff came upstairs one by one to pay homage to him as if he were some black potentiate. Okay, and the staff people came one by one to that guest room to see the Pongo, because they are all very curious to see the little Pongo because he's a new member. And at the same time, they were seeing all the activities, the lolling of the Pongo on the sofa, and they were looking, and as if, and he was sitting and doing it as if he is a ruler who has lost a power. Means potentate means is a ruler who has lost the power, having previously suffered by keeping Kumili the chimpanzee in the house. I knew from bitter experience that there was nothing like an ape for turning a civilized room into something closely resembling a bomb site in an incredibly short space of time. So, already they are all are very familiar with the behavior of the chimpanzee Kumili, which they brought earlier, and how it used to, put all the house upside down. Okay, even the monkeys, when they enter our kitchen or on our terrace, it puts everything misplaced, everything upside down. Okay, because they are so naughty by nature. Okay, so he knew, and everyone have this previous experience in their mind. So this time when Pongo entered in the guest room, all were very cautious and very careful in advance. Okay, when he became bored with lying on the sofa, I decided to make a circuit of the room to examine anything of interest. So when Pongo got bored of lolling on the sofa for some time, then he just made a circuit, means what, walking around the room in order to find out anything that is out of his interest, anything that like to eat, or anything that he can pick it up and throw it, or play with that. Monkeys love doing all these things. Okay, so he walks slowly around like a small black professor in a museum. So he's very dark in complexion. Of course, gorillas seem to be very dark in complexion, so it's very dark color, and it's looked like he was walking in such a steady foots that it showed as if some professor is making rounds inside the room. Okay, and again a black professor in a museum. So pausing now to look at a picture, now to stroke at an ornament. It's like, it's not like he's continuously roaming through the room. It's like he goes to one place, he looks at something, he stares at that, and stands there, watches it, observes it, and when he feels it's not his thing of interest, then he moves to the next thing. Okay, so by pausing somewhere and moving in that manner, he was moving everywhere inside the room. Okay, then again we can see that then he stroked to an ornament, then doing it so gently. Then he finds some ornamental thing hanged on the wall. He just holds with his finger, tries to stroke it or move it, and as if, and he sees that just to touch out of curiosity. Okay, and then we see that doing it so gently that there was never any danger, and he was doing that so gently that he was so careful that that thing should not fell down. It should not fell down, or it should not damage. He should not create any damage. He was so careful regarding that. Normally the monkeys or these type of animals are not bothered about all such things, but here we can see that Pongo behaves in a very civilized manner. Okay, so after the attitude I was used to with Kumili, I was captivated by Pongo's faithful, beautiful behavior. And Gerald Doodle and the other people also, they were so much impressed with the behavior of the Pongo, because they have the previous experience of the Kumili, the chimpanzee, that it put all the house upside down. So when they compare that and when they see the Pongo's behavior, Gerald Durrell felt so proud. Oh, I have got a very wonderful animal. It's okay, so civilized one. Okay, and you would have thought that he had been brought up in a house to watch him. Apart from a slight hiatus when he wet the floor, and be expected to know that this was not done in the best circles. Okay, so he did not made any he was actually behaving in such a manner that as if he was really brought and he was supposed to make to leave in a guest room. Okay, and he did not accept making a little bit of wetting of the room, because he understood that that was not the place for him to wet the room. Except that no other behavior was seemed to be um annoying by the side of the Pongo. Okay, hiatus, 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 the meaning is that it's a pause in activity, means stopping in doing something. Okay, so that is what you call hiatus. When you pause something, when you're doing something and you're pausing for a while and you continue the work, that you call it as a hiatus. Okay, so when he wet the floor, he felt something awkward at that time. He knew that this is not the place for him to wet, but he couldn't help at that time, of course. And it was not expected also, except that one behavior from the Pongo side. If you see that rest all the behavior seem to be very very as if he's a very trained animal, as if he's a very civilized animal. Okay, and by the time we put him to bed, my mother was doing her best to try to persuade me to keep him in the house permanently. And Gerald Durrell's mother, more than his wife, his mother was more interested in animals, and she loved, and she was trying to convince Durrell that let this animal remain inside the house itself permanently forever. Don't take it to the zoo, or don't keep it in the crate there. Okay, so I had, however, learned my lesson with Kumili, and I turned a deaf of ear to her pass. So when the mother came to hear, actually Gerald Durrell did not listen to her. He just kept himself deaf and dumb, as if because he have the previous experience. Now by seeing one behavior, you cannot judge the creature there, isn't it? Maybe Pongo is new to this house and he is scared, and he is not familiar with the family members, not familiar with that atmosphere. So that's why he might not be involved in so much mischievous activities like all other animals, or even the monkeys or the ape animals in the ape family used to do. But Gerald Durrell is very much familiar with the nature and behavior of the animals. So that is, I don't want to risk like what has happened with the Kumili in the previous time. So he kept unlistened, dumb, deaf to his mother's request. Please means to request. Okay, so Pongo, of course, did not leave the guest room in the condition that he found it, but this was only to be expected. And Pongo was also did not leave, because for him also, until his crate will get ready, he has to stay there for a couple of days. Although his manners were exemplary means extraordinarily appreciated. So his manner seems to be exemplary. He was only a baby. It's a very small animal, right? And could not be expected automatically to assume civilized behavior. Now, in this small animal, you cannot, again, how much you might have trained it, maybe for a week or for a month, not more than that. And even though it's so small that it won't get such a civilized training, okay, because he was, and so, but his way seems to be very quiet and very calm and creature, unlike the original nature of all the gorillas, okay. Then he says that is, and that is why Gerald Durrell doesn't want to take much risk with these type of creatures. And another thing is, Pongo is a gorilla, and it grows very big in size, so you cannot keep that animal for a long time in the home, and once it get used, it is very difficult to keep it away from the home also. So the guest room, when he left it, bore numerous traces of his presence. So finally, when he left the guest room, there were a lot of traces, footprints of the Pongo jumping, lolling here and there, and making the things. He did not scatter anything literally, but on one wall, for instance, was something that resembled like, but he was like, small children at home, they have this habit. What is that habit? They have this habit of taking some pencil or anything object that gets into their hand and drawing something on the wall, okay. So they might not be knowing the drawing, they might not skilled in the drawing, or not got any basic training in the drawing, but what they do, they simply just scribble on the wall, isn't it? And this is a very common nature, because they scribble because they love scribbling, whether it is on the floor or whether it is on the wall, they do it. And similarly, Pongo, when he was there for 2 days inside the guest room, he was just scribbling on the wall. Now when he's scribbling on the wall, a few of the marks are seen on the wall, okay. And it was like something Durrell tried to assume it was like something, a map of a Japan, okay, which was drawn by the ancient time people when they were about to go for a journey or a sea journey. They used to carry the map and they used to draw some lines and all, okay. It resembled or looked like that to some extent, except that you can see there was no other any kind of destruction or any kind of misbehavior created or done by the this Pongo. I hope you understood this much explanation. So we'll continue in the next video. Keep reading. Have a wonderful time.